everyone. Got an echo. Welcome, everyone, to another segment of Foundational Friday. Okay. I am Chief Yuya. You're listening to Foundational Friday on the Enlightenment and Transformation Network. And of course, as always, okay, I see we got some disturbances in the back. But of course, as always, I am pleasured and pleased to have you all in this space, ourselves together. And I want to welcome everyone. For those of you who want to call direct in, I see people coming in on the phone lines already. You can call in at 347-945-7680. Again, that's 347-945-7680. And to reiterate, you are listening to Foundational Friday on, and I'm going to definitely ask my co-hosts if they can keep the noise down in the back. But you're listening to Foundational Friday on Enlightenment and Transformation. And I want to thank you all for coming through this evening. Those of you who are listening from YouTube, those of you who are listening from Blog Talk Radio, and of course, those of you who are dialed in to the number, we want to welcome you. And for definitely all of you first-time listeners, I want to thank you for coming in and, for participating, even if your participation just equates to listening. And, we got a lot of, feedback on last night's show. We had some audio issues and, we were working through them during the show. And, a lot of people gave us some feedback on that, So thank you for the feedback. Thank you for that. And for those of you who were also sharing all the audio stuff, all the technical issues, it's a pain in the neck. The show is free. So shut up with all that. All right. It's annoying. So I'm just going to put it out there for you because, I don't mind putting it out there for you. The show is free. So be happy for what you're getting and understand that none of these mediums are perfect. So there's going to be some glitches sometimes. That's just what's going to happen. But sometimes when people give a lot, unfortunately, people tend to take on this sense of entitlement. Where's the show? Where's this? Where's that? And you got to remember that these are free offerings that are being given to you. So though we appreciate the patience of everyone with listening through some of the tech issues and things like that, at the same time, some of the rudeness is not appreciated. All right. Now I know in any other environment, people would not say anything. They would present a free show to you, and then what would happen is that maybe something would happen, go wrong, and don't forget. Let's put this in proper context. We get almost 400 free shows that have been given to you. And those 400 free shows, just the last couple ones, we've been having some tech issues because we're doing something different now. We're pushing the limits of the technology that's in front of us in order to bring a better quality and a better experience to you all, like being able to, play commercials and this and that and have all of these live things going on while there's a hangout going on and have it sound clear. So, we're pushing the thresholds a little bit here. So yeah, in any other environment, people will be given something and they sit back and they pout and complain about what they're given. Well, actually, I'm going to come in now and I want to thank you all for tuning in again to another episode of Foundational Friday on Enlightenment Transformation. I know on the Blog Talk side just now, you all couldn't hear me. And so we're here now on the Blog Talk side as well. But what I was doing just now to get everybody caught up to speed was kind of just, reminding everyone that these shows are free offerings, and we got a lot of good feedback. We got some good feedback last night. We're really pushing, like I was saying, the thresholds of what we can do technically with these shows in terms of the audios and the video, and being able to fly in commercials and fly in announcements and things like that. So the platforms that we're using were not necessarily made for all of that. So we're really pushing the limits. So that means at times there's going to be little, hangups. There's going to be little glitches and stuff. So some people had called in and gave us some good feedback in that sense, in terms of what needed to be worked, and what was not playing properly and whatnot on the videos. And then some people said some things that were a little inappropriate. And that's the beauty when you're independent and when you're free, like we are. You're able to tell people, like, wait a minute, no, you can't check. You got to kind of check yourself. And that's what I'm saying now. Because sometimes that stuff is not as cute as you guys may think it is. Like, oh man, that show was a headache to listen to. It's like, fool, you didn't pay for it. You're getting all of this information for free, and you have the nerve to act like it's supposed to be delivered to you a certain way. I'm just gonna check something real quick. But anyway, yeah, so you're getting all this stuff for free. You don't really have space and room to complain. And if there's a little glitch here and there, don't listen. If a glitch is too much for you to deal with, and like I said, that's the beauty of being free. Because if I wasn't free and I was dependent, or we were dependent on anyone other than ourselves to do what we need to do, then sometimes then you have to be subject to that kind of abuse. But we are free and we're not subject to that. So like I was saying right before I came in just now on Blog Talk, shut up with all that. It's rude. It's really rude. We've had people do that before. Sometimes you all forget that these shows are free. You didn't pay anything for them. And for the most part, many of you don't do anything in return. You get a lot and you don't give anything. So if there's a glitch for a couple of shows after 300 or 400 good shows where there was no audio glitches, and there's a glitch in 2 or 3 shows, you have no space to start poking your lips out. I couldn't understand, couldn't hear what they were saying. Shut up. Just shut up, man. You're being annoying. You're annoying. Okay. And for the most part, this type of experience isn't for you. Okay. You got your hand out for everything, and you want everything to be a certain way, but you're not giving anything anyway. So just sit down and listen to the shows. And if the audio glitch is too much, then click off and listen to an archive show, one of the 400 archive shows where it wasn't too much, or go to another station. Okay. All right. So we're going to try a couple things here in the in-between time. In between time and in the meantime, as they like to say. And then we're gonna work it out. Okay, so I'm gonna let my co-host Kim right now take over while we get some things set up. Kim, because we can hear you typing in the back, so we know you're there. All right, I'm gonna let you. Okay, so just come in, please, and then I'm gonna check some other things out. I'm gonna let you take over for a moment.
Now, there is an echo still.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just come back in. Our co-host Kim was going to take over, but she's letting me know there was an echo. Thank you, Kim, for that. I wanted to inform everyone. And matter of fact, Kim, while you're there, can I be heard on Blog Talk and YouTube?
I hear you on Blog Talk. I cannot hear anything on YouTube.
Okay, you can't hear me on YouTube. All right, so we'll have to figure out what's going on there. We'll have to work that out, of course. All right. But in any event, right? So I'm gonna keep broadcasting. And Kim, can you take over for a moment?
There's still like a really, really bad echo, but I can try to talk through it.
Okay, that would be great.
All right, peace everyone. It's Kim, and I'll just say a few things while Keith is trying to get our audience together. Um, First, I want to just remind you all we have a webinar coming up on the 11th, and that is alchemy. So in this webinar, we're going to be showing you some ways, some actual chemical processes or some ways to link spiritual evolution to your outside environment. And we're going to do that with some different alchemical processes. So as you know, most of these days when we did the herbs webinar and when we did the oils webinar, what we're doing is trying to learn how to use and transmutate or transform situations in our lives, or for whatever purposes we need. And so alchemy is a huge part of that, which is why we had the herbs and oils webinar first, so that you could understand how to choose certain herbs, why we pick certain herbs, and how to use oil for different things. And again, I want to say, and this is kind of jumping on what Chief was just saying earlier, even with the webinars, if you do decide to sign up and you participate, I would just like to ask that you just kind of clear your schedule for those 2 hours, because we put a lot of work into the webinars, and they're not like blog talk shows. This is not like this chit chat, or kind of like the shows.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
You can take a lot of notes, and it does require some attention. So a lot of the research that you do are very extensive, and the information is extensive. So it's not, like I said, it's not just like chit chat or a 2-hour-long blog talk show. It's an actual class. And so I know we have some people that are like maybe doing it on the phone, or contacting us later asking to say it again because they came in late or they missed it. So I just want to say, we really are providing a lot for the price of the webinar, and because I've been to a lot of different spiritual webinars, before I came to the Sadulu House, and they were a lot more expensive. And I didn't get as much information. So just kind of, if you come to the webinar, make sure you just kind of block out those 2 hours so that you can take good notes and pay attention. And that's it. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm being told that they can't hear anything on Blog Talk Radio, of course. It's always Blog Talk.
Blog Talk?
Yes. That we're not able to be heard on Blog Talk. So we'll keep working through that until we figure out exactly what's going on there on Blog Talks. And I would just say now, if anyone is listening on Blog Talk, if you can hear, if you could just hit the number 1 on your phone. If you can hear me, if you could hit the number 1 on your phone, that would be awesome. Just to let me know that I can be heard. Okay. So there we go. I see a number 1. So that means I can be heard. All right. So I don't know what that was. Okay. So apparently I can be heard on Blog Talk, and I think that I can also be heard on YouTube as well. So I guess shouldn't have any problems right now. But anyway, yeah. So I was just really just putting some of you in check on some of this. Some of you need to be put in check. You got to remember, and this is one of the issues with okay, I see the hands up. Thank you, everybody, for letting me know. I don't know what that was. Blog Talk is funny, but just kind of letting you guys know. when someone is going out of their way, especially to provide as much information as I know I provide, don't think I'm stupid. Don't think like I don't know how much information I'm giving you. I don't want you to just think I'm some egghead who sits in a room all day and I just have things spewing from me and like, oh, I got to get on the radio and just get this out of me. No, it's a conscious effort on a Thursday and especially a Friday night to sit on the phone and talk to people and hear them out and work with them and help them out and things like that. It takes conscious effort to do that. Not only of me, but of everyone that you hear helping. And usually it's somebody helping, even if you may only hear me. So when people leave stupid comments, it just makes me realize how crazy some of you are. And I mean that literally, how crazy you are. We're working through the glitches. Thank you for the patience. But at the same time, we don't have to be the benevolent shopkeepers all the time, especially when the shop is a free clinic. It's like coming to a free clinic and sitting there and poking your lips out and complaining and pouting. It's free. If you don't like it, go to another one. So I would just say that to all of you. For those who made statements like, oh man, I can't sit through this. All right, then get lost. We don't want you anyway. All right. And, and again, like I said, that's the beauty of being free and independent. If I was on someone else's network or something, I couldn't say that to you. I'd have to sit here and take your junk and not say anything. But that's why we have to be free. So that way we can talk the way we talk. You see, because business here, like in the Western world, what do they tell you? The customer is always right. So then we take on that mindset. Oh, the customer's always right. Can't say anything to the customer. Yeah, well, when you're doing your own thing, you do what you want. You say what you want. So what I'm saying is stop saying stupid stuff all the time like that. Stop sending in dumb customer email response like, oh, the show. I like there was one brother, Nahum. He was really polite. He let us know this is where the show messed up at this hour or at this minute mark. So it was actually helpful. So we were able to go back and say, okay, well, this is where it went wrong. This is where we can fix that. But just somebody saying, oh, man, this is a headache listening to, you can go to hell. All right. Just so you know. All right. I'm just putting that out there for you all because you need to know that sometimes, man. Sometimes people lose sight because they have this idea of gurus and teachers being so benevolent all the time. And they're kind of just people that you dump on. I remember there was a movie years ago that came out, Eat, Pray, Love. It was a book as well. And it was something so interesting in that book that I picked up as a teacher. And it was that, because in the movie, it was the woman with the big nose, like a collie dog. Jessica Roberts, I think. That's her name? Jessica, her brother's Julia in that. Roberts. Julia Roberts, right. Julia Roberts, right. Collie dog. So yeah, she was like a horrible jerk through the entire film to everyone who was trying to help her. Everyone who was benevolently helping her and trying to guide her and give her advice, she would just come and say, well, I can't do that. That's impossible. And it's like, shut up. You know what I mean? People are giving you things for free. People are trying to help you along your journey. You got the nerve to have an attitude. You can rot in hell. And then the rest of us who are already in heaven can just keep going on without you. So there has to be some grace sometimes. You got to learn to not only teach gracefully, but you also have to learn at times to listen and absorb and learn gracefully. And everything is not going to be presented to you and shoved down your mouth the way you want it. And for the most part, those of you who want it that way, you ain't going to do nothing with the information anyway. Because those of you who are really trying to make something happen, like Brother Nahum, who I know, and I may be pronouncing your name wrong. I'm sorry. Naeem actually is his name. I always say it wrong because the way the H is in there. But yeah, he said, okay, I want to make this show better. So let me show you exactly where it was going on. And sometimes when we're on air, people will say, hey, listen, we can't hear you right now, or it's echoing. It kind of help out. So I don't know. That just flashed through my mind just now with some of the glitches. So because as I was sitting there saying, oh, sorry for the glitches last night, as I was saying that, then I also said to myself, I don't have to really focus on an apology that much. We all riding together in this, and you got to understand that we're building some of this stuff as we go. And if we really are some form of at least learning community, then we have to be a little bit more forgiving with one another. And we can't take on this real entitled posture where you just feel that people just have to keep giving to you. That's one of the biggest turnoffs as a teacher, when you have someone you're trying to help and they just keep trying to transfer all of their anger onto you. You see, because they're not, you know, because it's like, I don't know, I'm not picking up on this, I'm not this. So they start blaming you for their lack of learning, you know, or again, you're presenting something to someone and because it's not exactly how they want it, they're complaining. Well, check this out. So you all know, you listeners are not exactly how we want you. All right. So as I give those little nice messages on YouTube and stuff, and I say, okay, thank you for your patience, I'm going to say this to you. One day, thank me for my patience towards you. Thank me for that. Thank me for all the times when you call in with a question. I give you the answer and you keep talking because you're stuck on what you want the answer to be. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know the people who call in like that, or the people who call in and try to hijack the show. Don't want to get off the air. You tell them one question, they just keep talking or trying to cut you off. You know, I'm going to thank myself for my patience. I'm going to thank myself for my patience. Or the people who call in every Sunday or every Thursday or every Friday with the same kind of questions, but meanwhile, they won't get my book. They won't take a class. You know, and not to say that this, because I have a lot of students and the books sell a lot, but I'm talking about the people who call in all the time and try to make the shows their class. Oh, I ain't got to get the book of class. I could just call and talk to them. I'm going to thank myself for my patience with you on that one. Okay. I just want you to know, I'm doing this little sidebar. I want you to know I see you. Just because I giggle and I joke all the time doesn't mean I don't see you. It's just the reason I don't comment on it is because you're not worth the comment. So I'm only mentioning it this time because there are other people who help with these segments and things like that. And as Sister Kim just pointed out to me in the I Am consistent segments, we're here every Thursday, every Friday, every Wednesday, every Monday, every Sunday. Consistent, you know. But there's people who help, and I don't want them to feel overlooked. I don't want them to feel disrespected by it. Me, I'm used to it. I know how to deal with it. I don't have a problem with people walking away saying, I'm never going to listen to this show again. Or people saying, I'm never going to work with that Bible again. I could care less. It doesn't really matter to me. But for other people, especially women, you know, they may internalize some of that a little differently. Me, I know you're crazy. I know you are. I know you'd have to be crazy for the amount of information that enlightenment and transformation gives you guys every 7 days for free. You'd have to be insane to make one complaint. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, this is a crazy person. You don't believe me? Go to somebody else's network and get a bunch of other confusing information that you can't patch together and put anywhere. Go ahead. Go to someone else who's teaching you about chakras and breathing and then try to apply it to your life and watch how difficult it is. But you come to enlightenment transformation, you get counsel on money and business. You get counsel on spiritual matters. You get counsel on cultural matters. You get counsel on family matters and life advice. Come on, man. Come on now. Come on. Knock it off. Knock it off. You know you're not getting that at the degree and at the level of competency and exact execution. You're not getting that anywhere else. And authenticity. You know you're not getting that. Nobody's roping you into a bunch of things you got to buy, and there's no big setup. There's no big conference where I'm going to sell you some fake houses, or I'm asking you for money to help me build an institution that is never going to get built because I'm lying about build. All these other things these scam artists out here do. You don't have any of that going on. You just getting straight good information. So I'm going to thank all the people who left comments. Thank you so much. Who just say, hey, this is what's going on. It's echoing, or this happened, that's how. Thank you. Thank you, really, honestly, because I know you're trying to make sure it's right. Like you probably sense like, oh man, they're trying to really bring something better to us, you know, and make it this way and make it that way, broadcasting on YouTube and Hangouts at the same time, which you're not even supposed to do, by the way, because broadcasting phone calls on Hangouts is illegal in some states because you're technically recording a phone call. Okay. So yeah, so he's like, oh, he just incriminated himself, whatever, you know. So all of that, trying to get all that to work together, it's not easy, you know. So thank you for your patience, and thank all of you who helped out. And for those of you who were pouting and complaining, go somewhere else. I'm fine with it. Go somewhere else with that. You're annoying. Nobody wants you around anyway. Go somewhere else. All right. So, you know, something out, and this kind of triggered because something happened today that made me think about something. And I see some people got their hands up. I'm gonna get to you guys. But there was something real cool that happened to me today that I said I wanted to speak on over what I was thinking I was going to speak on today. And it's really about impact, the impression that you leave with people, you know. And what happened today, right? I was working, and long story short, because it doesn't need to be a long story, it's not all that complicated, but you know, I'm sharing it. So basically I see this big giant man walking into my yard, right? And like walking with some kind of surety. So I'm like, what the heck? So I grabbed something and then came downstairs and was like, yo, you know, what are you doing? And he was like, Baba. And I said, yeah. And he was like, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, nah, you know, I don't remember you. Who are you? And it was this, well, he looked like a big man, but it's because he's 6'2". He's almost 6'3". He's 16 years old. And he said, when I was 7 years old, you took me to a Kwanzaa event that you were doing. And he said, you took a bunch of us. At the time, you had a minivan. So I'm like, okay, well, it's definitely, well, first of all, the fact you said it was Kwanzaa and you called me Baba, then you must know me. And he remembered the minivan. I had bought a minivan years ago because I used to do so many different events and stuff, or go to events, that a lot of the youth would always want to go with me. So, man, I can't remember what I was driving before the minivan. Whatever I was driving, though, it couldn't accommodate everybody. Or I think if I remember correctly, they were messing up my interior so much. So I was like, you know, I got to get a minivan, which is crazy because I'm like, these are not even my children. I'm getting a minivan for all these children. The car around all these children, not even mine. But so like, let's say if I was taking my youth to like the Universal Circus or something like that, then, you know, the children that they play with, I would take them too, because it's like, I don't want them coming back saying, oh, we went to the Universal Circus and this, that. And then the other children like, well, you know, we can't share that story with you. So I would just pack them all. Come on, everybody. Come on, let's go. I would sometimes even take the chair. I know this is dangerous, but I take the chairs out of the minivan and just like pile them in, you know. So apparently, and I still don't remember, I remember him slightly, but he was like, yeah, you know, you were doing this Kwanzaa event and you got up and you drummed. He said, I remember you drumming, and there was these ladies dancing, and you were drumming, and then you talked, and you were lighting these candles. And he said, you know, I never forgot about it. And I said, one day I wanted to come and thank you for doing that, because it really, like, you know, he was like kind of, you know, he felt it. He was like, you know, it really meant a lot. So I'm like, you know, and he told me his name, and I said, you know, that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't remember your name, you know, because with children, it's like the girls, you call them sweetheart. The little boys, you just say, boy, hey, boy, get over here. So you remember them like that. Names, I don't know, unless you have something that really jumps out. And I said, man, I don't even remember you. I said, you must have been well behaved, because I don't remember. And then as he was talking more, I saw something in his face, and I said, wait a minute, I think I remember you. And I said, that night, did I have to take another young man out to the hallway and tighten him up And was he yelling in the hallway while we were doing the ceremony? He was like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Now I remember you. You know, he was like, yeah, he was screaming in the hallway. And you kept telling him, if you keep screaming, you're going to go out there and give him something to really scream about. And I was like, yeah, okay. That sounds like one of our events. So it just got me to thinking about the impact that we leave on people sometimes, and more importantly, children. And I always say this to people, you know, especially those of you who are going through like bad splits and bad breakups, man. You know, one of the things that you always want to try to maintain as much as possible, if possible, you want to try to maintain your structure for a child. Because a lot of times you never know, children are going through things and they just really want structure. They just want to go to the parent who is least insane. You know, the one who is most consistent, using that word again, talking about consistency, but they really want to go to the one who really is most consistent, and real simple word here, but it's hard when you're going through trauma, who's kind. And I'm going to tell you something. And you guys listen, I know we got people of all, and we got grandparents who listen, and I got teenagers who listen to this show. And you know it. You can attest to this. Children always remember people who were kind to them. And it could be small acts of kindness. Children remember people who were kind. You know, they remember people who were mean too, though. Now, you know, you remember those mean aunts and grandma who were just mean for no reason. But you really, you know, people stick in your head who were kind to you, you know. And this young man, I mean, he's 16 now. I said he was 7. So 9 years. I haven't seen him, and I only saw him that one day. And I remember what happened. It was these other young people I were taking. They were all outside playing. And I said, come on, it's time to go. We got to go. And I didn't have, you know, they were like, oh, and he was like just out there by himself. I slightly remember they were playing ball or catch or something, I remember. And I was like, you know, I said, ask your mama if you can go. And then I walked behind him, and I think I talked to his mother. And she, you know, she knew me just from, you know, she's like, oh, you're Bob, I heard of you. You know, so he jumped on in, and I remember giving them all fabric, because one of the rules that I've always maintained is that women or girls can't wear pants in my house. So like I always would keep, and still do, keep fabric near my front door. So if somebody comes over and they have on pants, I can, you know, here, put this around your waist, because you're not going to wear the same thing I'm wearing, you know, and I'm not putting a dress on. So one of us is going to have to compromise. So I remember him, you know, me giving like little dashikis and fabric and stuff, and having to give him some fabric. And like, I remember wrapping it around like his shoulder and like a sash. And I was like, all right, you're a warrior now. And he was like, I remember you called me a warrior, you know? So little things like that, you know, really trying to sometimes, and it's difficult, seeing the village, you know, that's hard. Sometimes you just see a bunch of little bad children outside throwing hard objects near your house, and you're nervous about your windows getting broken out, or they drinking a soda and throwing it in your front yard, or whatever little dumb stuff children do, because children are nasty, mean, and dumb. That's just how they are. They're disgusting. They do nasty stuff. You know, they blow their nose on your furniture. They pick on other children, and they do some real dumb stuff that you look and say, didn't you know you were going to get hurt? Why would you do that? You know, why would you ride a bike around with no seat or no brakes? What are you doing? You know, but that's just the nature of children. And we were all there at some point. But when you can look at those children and try to look beyond their current flawed form and look at what they may be, look at what they came to be, you know, you'd be surprised how your behavior towards them will change. You know, your perception towards them will change, you know, and the responsibility that you may immediately feel that you will have towards them. Immediately, it just kicks in, right? Like when he came in, he said, Baba. So immediately it's like, okay, you know, I'm in a certain zone now. If he would have said Mr. So-and-so, well, that would have put me in another zone. I definitely would have ushered him, you know, somebody coming into my yard saying Mr., I'm on my guard. you know. But when he said Baba, and he's a huge child now, big old football player, you know. So he looked like a big 20-year-old bodyguard, you know. But as soon as he said Baba, it's, you know, I got to go into father mode. And you know, we sat and talked for a while, and he was just sharing where he's at and what he's been doing and things like that. And it was good, you know. So I'm always appreciative of things like that. And, you know, you always want to be mindful of the impact that you leave, you know, and the spirit and the intent behind the things that you do, because you'd be surprised who's watching. And even if they're not looking at you, they're feeling you. They're feeling your vibrations, and they soak that stuff later on. And later on, those things may become the tenets that shape and mold who and what they are. As young men or as young women, you know, you may leave a superhero model with them, where they now you've given them something to strive towards. And you know, they may not know during that time in your life or whatever, you could be going through some craziness, you know. But the point is, it's the impact, you know. It's the impact that you leave with the children that's most important, and just with adults too. And, you know, I'm not excluding adults, but I just thought it was an interesting thing. And it's not the first time that that's happened to me, but it happened right on Foundational Friday. And I was thinking about how we affect the environment and things like that, and the trails that we lead. And like a lot of times what happens in those situations, you create like a esoteric and metaphysical person inside of the heads and the minds of individuals that you come into contact with like that, you know. So like he was sharing things about me, you know, things about that moment and that day. He was like, yeah, I never experienced anything like that. And he was like, I never really did again after that time you took us to Kwanzaa. He was like, it was cool, you know. And this is not a child who I would say necessarily is into consciousness right now, but certainly in consciousness, I'm using parathenically, because again, I tell you guys, everybody's conscious, you know, but he may not be African centered, but he certainly has an awe of African centered experiences. It was a very healthy bonding moment that him and the rest of those children were able to share. You know, he was able to be in the environment and be in the setting of a man who wasn't trying to take advantage of him, who wasn't trying to do something salacious to him, who wasn't trying to take advantage of his mother or take advantage of his father or anything like that, but just someone who was giving. And it's not the way I am on the radio. You guys may think I'm kind of mean, but you hear me in real life. I am not for the faint of heart. And I'm no different with the children. Now, little girls is different. Little girls do get away with stuff with me. I'm not gonna lie. I know sometimes they kind of play me out a little bit, but even little girls think I'm strict, you know. So I mean, I only let it go but so far. But yeah, I do kind of have a soft spot for all little girls. I don't know, I just do. Little boys, they you know, they get it from me. You know, they get it. But it's because also a lot of times I tell you guys the things that are going on in our communities, I blame it on the men. They're not strong enough. They're afraid to say what needs to be said. They're too passive aggressive. I mean, what the heck is that? To be a man and be passive aggressive? There's something really wrong with you. You sitting in the corner quiet. No, I mean, I ain't got nothing to say. Come on. You're a man. Speak up. Say what you need to say. We're men. We're bulls. We do what we need to do. But you can also be gentle at the same time. You know, you don't have to be a bull in the china shop. You know, you got to learn the hard and soft of life. And you can leave an impact either way. You know, you can leave an impact on a child either way. So, of course, you know, I told him he's welcome whenever he wants to come by, and or if he ever needs to get away and just needs to sit and chill, or he needs to talk to me, you know, he can always, you know, call me up or come by or whatever. And sometimes that's all it takes, you know, just knowing that somebody is willing to be in your corner, you know, or somebody is willing to include you, to make you a part of what it is that they're doing that they consider to be sacred. that they consider to be beautiful. And if you come with a person authentically like that, you'd be surprised what the reaction will be. Sometimes, especially when it comes to our spirituality, we're too quick to corporatize everything. And once we corporatize things, it loses its life. You know, so like I could have took a carload of, and it must have been like, and that many, I mean, that used to be packed. It was probably like 12, 13 children with me that day. We came, you know, we rolled deep. I always tell you guys, when I roll places, I roll deep. You know, but it's not like you might think. It's either going to be a lot of women or it's going to be a lot of children, you know. And it was an event I was putting on, you know. But they got to see, because he was like, man, I remember you were doing a ceremony, then you were drumming, and then you were doing the libations with the water and this and that. I was like, yeah, but that wasn't because I wanted to do all those things. I said, that's because we don't have enough warriors out here. So a lot of times, you know, it usually ends up being one or two person who's doing everything. And then most other people are just spectators. So that's why you saw me running up and down and also transporting children. Then I had to feed you guys. We ate, but then I had to get everybody home. And that's what it is. That's what this work is about. It's not always cool, you know, because I mean, it's a minivan, you know what I mean? So it doesn't always look cool, but the rewards can be great, and they may not be immediate. They may come 7 years later, because that was a huge gift for me. You know, for him to come and share that, and not necessarily for me to know that, hey, what I'm doing is right. It was a gift for me just to know that somebody got something good. Child got something good that helped to shape their perception of a black man going forward. That was a huge gift. You know, I could take the rest of the month off. All right, but I'm gonna go to a call. I don't know if this call was just helping me for the phone thing. I mean the audio, but I'm gonna go just in case. All right, Skype call. You're on Foundational Friday. Peace.
Peace. Yeah, I actually just put my hand up for you there.
Oh, okay. Just for the audio. Thank you. Oh, you got something? You got something for me?
No, I was just saying, you know what? You know, despite all you're going to get good and bad in everything you do. And just know that, you know, there are people who actually appreciate the work that you and your staff do. And just keep at it, you know.
Thank you.
Keep focused. Remain strong. Okay, have a good night.
Give thanks. You too. Thank you. And I know that, you know, again, I'm saying thank you. But I know that there are people who appreciate what we do. I mean, shoot, I guess the story I just told is that, really. I think about it. You know, but yeah. But even though there's people who appreciate, and trust me, it doesn't get me down, nothing like that. It's not even like, because I'm just like, yeah, you see these fools? This is what they do. That's my response. It's not even like you sent an email complaining about the audio into the email box. It's not that for me at all. It's like, yeah, because I've been doing this since 90, 89, 90. I've been working in the community. I'm used to this. You know, I'm so used to this type of stuff. But one of the things sometimes, you know, because I've worked in public schools a lot and things like that, teaching classes or doing rites of passage for institutions. And one of the reasons why I stopped doing that, I years ago, I told myself I'm not going back in the classroom again, because you have to filter too much. You can't really say what needs to be said or do what really needs to be done. You know, and I said, I'm too old at this point to allow myself to be handicapped like that in this work that we do. So if this was another environment, I wouldn't be able to say anything. But in my own kingdom, I can say, stop with the effery. Stop with that. Don't do that. I can tell you what's wrong with you. You know, you have a sense of entitlement. You're unappreciative, you're ungrateful, and you have a microwave mentality. You feel like when you just turn on YouTube or something, some people are just supposed to start outpouring information to you. And you start thinking that the information is for you exclusively. You don't realize that there's thousands of people who listen to these segments. Thousands. And everyone's getting something different. You know, it's not just about you and what you feel about a little issue. And if it's that deep to you, then why don't you volunteer to help out? But then that's when you hear crickets. So I know that, and I'm saying this not I'm saying it for my staff, but I'm also saying it. Maybe some of you pick up on this sometimes. I always drop these little warnings. These are like big brother warnings to all of you who are looking to get into this type of work or to help people and things like that. I always drop these little big brother warnings so you kind of know, hey, this is what you're going to be dealing with. This is how people act. So, really decide if that's something that you'll be able to deal with. Really decide if it's something that you built for and that you got the stomach for, or if you're one of them people like, people make me sick, I don't want to deal with all that. It's good to know now, because a lot of times when we think about being spiritualists and we think about doing readings for people and spiritual work, stuff like that, it seems exotic, and it seems very mystical and like, oh, that would be so much fun. But I'm telling you, people can really make you start to reconsider how you feel about helping the world. I'm telling you, people can really embitter you to the world, where you'll just be like, you know what? Forget everybody. I'm not helping anyone. I'm just doing my own thing. So you have to have a certain tolerance and a certain constitution. I mean, a lot of people may listen to me and say, man, he's so direct. He's so this. He can be harsh at times. But what do you think you have to be and do when you're dealing with an abusive population? You're dealing with a population where you're looked over, and you're dealing with a population where people would just, especially on the internet, because you got all these ghosts, people can hide behind their names and their avatars and just throw stones. They say things and do things they wouldn't do in at least the physical realm. They wouldn't do that, but on the internet you can hide and you can say whatever you feel like saying, and whatever you can be a troll, as they call them. Yeah, okay. It would be real nice. Let me just make a little note to myself here. So, yeah, it's really interesting on the internet and things like that, because people are allotted a certain level of I don't know, just a certain level of trespass that maybe they really shouldn't be. And and it's difficult because on the internet you only come out, you can never come out when you disagree with someone or you tell someone, hey, don't do that to me. You only come out seeming overly aggressive, because the internet is a very feminine space. That's why when people argue on the internet, or if somebody says something rude to you on the internet, you say something back, you both seem like you're ignorant. No matter how that's why I don't really do the social media and stuff like that, because I've noticed that from a distance, and I say, yeah, that's not something I want to be a part of. Because the way people talk to each other is just really uncalled for. It's just really, really, it can cross the lines of decency, because there's a whole nother protocol on the internet. But in person, you wouldn't talk to someone like that. So even when I'm doing these shows, I speak to people as if we're sitting in a room together. So the jokes I'm going to crack, I would crack in person, and the things I sit and listen to and the patience that I utilize to hear you out and stuff, I would do that in person too. Try to bring some type of humanity back to it. But again, I want to thank you for that, for just sharing, like, yeah, we are appreciated. And I know that, because you guys do show your appreciation. You do. You absolutely do. Like I told you, it was a show not long ago. I think it was last Strong, or maybe the Strong before, where I said, you know what? I can't say that you don't. I can't say that people don't support. I can't say that people are ungrateful. I can't say those things. I would be lying, and I would be ungrateful, because it's not a Sunday or a Thursday or Friday that goes by that we don't get a call or saying thank you. Even if it's a quick thank you. Thank you for what you guys do. Here's my question. Doesn't matter, because you didn't have to say that. So I can't sit here and pretend like we're living a certain paradigm that we're not. We're not living the paradigm at this point of thankless work. However, for those of you looking to get into this, I want you to understand that the ratio of those who are grateful to those who are jerks, those who are grateful are far outnumbered by the jerks. Far outnumbered. For every 5 people you have who are grateful, you're going to have at least about 150 to 200 people who are ungrateful. And that's actually, it's kind of, it probably was a little more, maybe a lot more like 300-400 people who are ungrateful, or who say something out of pocket or whatever, you know. So that's what you have to kind of be built for. And for some of us, that is the warrior work of doing community work. That is the warrior aspect of it. It's not about going on the front lines and fighting and tussling with people. Sometimes it's about fighting and tussling with your own impulse, because a lot of us have very poor impulse control. Very poor impulse control. You know, we don't know how to really handle ourselves in critical situations. So we just blow up, or we just go to our instinctual impulses. You know, we get angry really quick. You know, we get hurt really quick. We're just quick to certain things because we're too impulsive. And we don't really know how to control that and monitor it and know when our impulses are kicking in, and at the same time when our logic is kicking in, and giving them each the equal share of consideration. You know, so when you're doing this type of work, you have to really be diligent about fine-tuning and refining your impulse control mechanisms, because people will say things to you. Sometimes people will lash out at you, you know, and you have to know how to not respond in a way that may further their illness. I'm gonna tell you, this happens a lot too when you decide to. I had a client a couple of months ago. She's a psychologist, and she had asked me about dating clients. So she said, you know, I'm in a loveless marriage. So I'm concerned that I may at some point be attracted to one of my clients. So she was like, you know, what do I do in that situation? You know, and I said, well, we don't have to dig into it's unprofessional, because you know, all of that. You know, we're beyond that. And she was like, yeah, you know, she's like, but I just feel something coming. And I said, well, the thing is, you got to understand that if you're dealing with someone whose vibration is much lower than yours, and yours is much higher, of course, and you engage with them on an intimate level, you're now bringing their vibration up to a point that they were never able to bring up themselves. So now when you pull away, or they're not receiving that anymore, a lot of times they fall back down hard and they fall into a depression. And then they'll start becoming very needy. And it's because your vibration has become a drug to them. So then what happens next is something happens and you're no longer interested in them, or things don't work out, they'll resent you. Because like any addiction, it grows. You know, it doesn't just stay at a level. You know, it grows. And when you no longer can accommodate the amount of food and energy that they need to feed from you, they now resent you and they hate you because of it. And anything that you taught them previously, they'll rebel against. And anything you have to say to them now, they close their ears off too, because they're still intoxicated and bewildered and inebriated with withdrawal from the drug. And the drug is your vibration. The drug is your ashe. You know, so as a healer, you always have to be careful with that. If it's, especially if it's a casual situation, you know, for instance, like the young man who came by, you know, he was like, man, I never met a black man like you since that day, you know. So it was something obviously that pricked him and was in him and really excited him that he could not find again. So I told him, I said, well, you're going to have to become that black man now. That's how you'll find him. I said, what you're looking for has been staring at you right in the mirror. You become it. And then you can take me to a Kwanzaa event. And I told him soon, you know, it'll be a time when maybe I can't try. My eyes won't be any good. I need you to take me to the Kwanzaa event. You know, bring that experience to me. Let me see what it feels like to stand in the presence of that, you know? So a lot of times we don't turn inwards and look at the impact that we can have on ourselves, because we're so absorbed and so focused and fixated on the impact that others have had and the places that they've brought us to. And it's like skipping steps. You know, I always talk about that with you guys all the time. Like, you got to go through the process. Well, some people find a shortcut. And they say, well, if I start flirting with this Babalawo, this Iyanifa, you know, I can get a hold of some of their magic ahead of time. But then when they pull away, do you have the practices and the culture in place to maintain that? I bet you don't. Bet you don't. I had a woman once I was doing a reading for who expressed an attraction towards me, like right on the spot. And then I said, well, yeah, that's not really what I'm here for, you know. And she said, well, I said, I'm here to give you the medicine. And she said, well, can you put the medicine inside of me? You know, and I said, okay. So we go, we go in there. So as I'm doing the reading, what she does is she reaches out and she touches my divination tools. Big no-no. Big no-no. You don't do that. You can really get hurt behind that. Okay. Not from me physically, but spiritually. So I said, why did you do that? What are you doing? And she said, I just wanted to see what you were going to do. She said, I knew I wasn't supposed to touch him, but I wanted to see how you were going to respond. So I said, okay. I said, well, the way I'm going to respond is basically, we're going to close out this session and you're never to contact me again. That's how I'm going to respond to that. All right. Because the only other response would be me to return the disrespect that you're showing to me. So just from that, from her touching my divination tools, trying to flirt with me, she created a certain energy vortex. So she had been like trying to reach out and get readings from me like for months afterwards, because she was saying now, after I did that, I feel depressed. When I was talking to you, I felt so good. This, that. Right. Because you were an energy thief and something within your soul said, touch his divination tools, you get even more energy. And what I did was I closed up shop. I said, nope, click, no more for you. And now you're going crazy going through withdrawal. You see, so there's a certain responsibility even that our wolves have on them, or priests and priestesses have on them, and in situations where we have to be mindful and sensitive about the impact that we have on people. And if you know you're dealing with someone who's sick, you got to kind of almost look at everyone like they're mental patients. So you have to make a decision. If you start bringing some balance and stability in their life, are you willing to maintain that? And understand that at some point they may turn on you. They oftentimes do turn on you, for whatever reason. They will rebel against you and resent you for not maybe being the huge image that they may have thought you were, or not being a consistent and constant feed source. Okay. And those are things you have to know. Those are things you have to know. So even when it comes to doing these shows and stuff, they're consistent. And people are feeding from them, but you better be growing from them. Because I tell you, I'll shut all this down in an instant. And there's about 40 other things in my life that would matter more to me than shutting these shows down. Just so you know, I'll get up tomorrow and I'll eat my breakfast and like nothing even happened. So you got to make sure that beyond just downloading the shows and having all the archives in a folder somewhere, that you're actually applying this stuff so it becomes alive and true and living within you. And when it becomes alive and true and living within you, then one day you'll look in the mirror and you'll see that you've become the Alafin, the resurrected embodiment of the law that enlightenment and transformation was imbuing to you all of this time. That's the goal. All right, that has been our Foundational Friday. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I want to urge you all to tune in this Sunday to Chief Speaks, 11 a.m. Eastern. The call-in number is 347-945-7680. Again, 347-945-7680. That is Chief Speaks, and we're broadcasting at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can call in with your questions, comments, concerns, rants, whatever it is. But if you try to take over the show, I will shut you down. And you guys know who I'm talking about. I know you do. That's one thing I like about my audience. You guys kind of think like I do. All right. So you know when people are doing stuff and when I'm just trying to be nice about it. But anyway, I'll see you all this Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Are you familiar with the story of Ogun, Oshun, and Oya? Ogun was married to Oshun and Oya. This is told as a love story, but is actually describing an alchemical process. Ogun is iron, Oshun is fresh water, and Oya is air. Iron was submerged in water, causing it to rust. Then air came and separated the mixture and brought an end to the marriage. This is actually the process of corrosion and evaporation. These alchemical processes are also directly related to spiritual evolution. How? To find out, register for the next live webinar, Alchemy, on November 11th, 2015. Visit saduluhouse.com/events to RSVP and to see our list of monthly webinars for 2016. 2016 webinar topics include meditation, spiritual cleansing, astral projection, chakras, crystals, water magic, candle magic, the third eye, animal totems, dreams, and sex magic. Don't forget, check us out at saduluhouse.com/events.